Hey everyone, welcome into our latest Trade to Black podcast, our weekly recap powered by Dutchie. I am your host, Shad Dales. As mentioned, this is the full cannabis recap for the week of July 14th, and it was a busy one. From Ricky Williams at the White House, to the tragic raid in California involving Glass House, to big deals shaping up the cannabis stock landscape. So with that, let's get into it. First up, Ricky Williams. He's making headlines again. The former NFL star, once punished by the league for smoking cannabis, is now pushing hard for rescheduling under Trump. Last Friday, Williams met with top officials from agriculture, HUD, energy, and the White House Counsel's office. He called cannabis, quote, a game changer for small business, jobs, and equity, saying it's time federal law catches up with the 39 states already legal in some form. Trump ally Bruce Levell called the meeting highly productive, saying the Biden administration failed on rescheduling, but Trump is ready to deliver. But here's the catch. The DEA, as we know, still hasn't moved an inch. On Monday, the agency told the judge the process remains stalled. Acting leadership isn't giving a timeline, and Congress, well, it could act, isn't moving quickly either. So the big question is this real reform, or again, is this political theater? I also want to point out that Mike Tyson and other athletes, they sent a letter to Trump thanking him for prior clemency and pushing for banking reform and rescheduling. So again, this topic is only getting louder. Switching gears now to Ron DeSantis, who is doubling down on anti-cannabis politics in Florida. Here we go again. He just rejected State Senator Joe Gruters for a key financial role, citing Gruters' support for last year's failed adult use ballot measure. DeSantis has even called backing cannabis reform, quote, siding with liberal Democrats. Think about that. His stance is shaping not just policy, but appointments and power plays in Florida. And that is the reality. Ron DeSantis does not like cannabis. And in Pennsylvania, lawmakers are making a bipartisan push to legalize adult use. New House and Senate bills dropped last week proposing regulated sales, a keystone cannabis authority, and a focus on record expungements. Governor Josh Shapiro says neighboring states are already profiting off Pennsylvanians crossing borders to buy cannabis, something we've been reporting on quite a bit lately. The question now, will the GOP-controlled Senate finally budge or stall again in 2026? Finally, a federal contradiction that's too big to ignore. The USDA quietly labeled cannabis medicinal in its phytochemical database, directly contradicting its Schedule 1 status under the Controlled Substances Act. It's another sign that even with the federal government, science and policy aren't aligned whatsoever. Now let's switch to California on a more serious note. Jamie Atlantis, a farm worker at a cannabis greenhouse, has died after falling through a roof during an ICE and CBP raid. Over 300 workers were detained, including minors. The family says Atlantis was chased. Agents deny it, calling claims lies. The raid, which many of you know, was part of the enforcement at Glass House Farms. It has sparked protests and criticism, especially after reports of forced deletion of raid footage. So before we go any further, our thoughts and prayers go out to his entire family. Rest in peace, Jamie Atlantis. Keeping on the topic of Glass House brands, they just secured a $77.5 million refinancing deal, which will lower its expensive debt. For investors, that's a positive move, but the ICE controversy still looms large. Meanwhile, anti-cannabis groups are resurfacing tired talking points. Smart approaches to marijuana is once again claiming cannabis economics, they don't add up, a position many in the industry consider outdated and politically motivated. You don't say when it comes to Sam. Let's now move to the corporate front, where Ascend Wellness, they launched a new e-commerce platform and a revamped loyalty program complete with AI-powered shopping and cashless checkouts. Also, High Tide, they secured a $30 million convertible loan from Kronos, funding expansion to 300-plus stores and international growth. And Fluent, they paid down board fees with stock trimming cash burn, but signaled tight liquidity. Also, Pure Sun Farms, a Village Farms subsidiary, they published research proving THC potency varies wildly within a single plant. This could push regulators to rethink labeling standards. In Verano, they promoted James Leventis to Chief Strategy and Compliance Officer, underscoring its focus on federal reform positioning. Also, Aurora Cannabis, they scored EU GMP certification for its Ontario facility, strengthening its export game. And MaryMed struck a deal in Maine to expand Betty's Eddies edibles into the state's medical market. Good move by MaryMed. And the last thing I want to leave you on, and it's more interesting data. Legalization may be boosting home values. Yeah, boosting home values. A new study shows homes in adult use states rose $60,000 more on average than in prohibition states since 2009. Think about that. But there's a flip side. Higher prices also mean housing affordability issues in many of these same states. So there's lots of ways of looking at this. All in all, looks like the quality of life actually picks up for some people that live in adult use states. So that's a wrap for this week. And as I said last week, stay connected because we keep hearing some things out of Washington that's gaining more and more momentum around rescheduling. Could it happen? We don't know, but there is momentum building. Timeline-wise, again, hopefully this happens sooner rather than later, but as many people say that we've interviewed recently, this feels different this time. So with that, as I said, make sure to stay connected, stay informed, because if we get any information, we'll drop it down here at the Trade to Black podcast. So the big question remains, will Trump deliver on rescheduling? Will Pennsylvania finally legalize? And will Glasshouse weather its storm? Let us know by leaving your comments below on what you think is going to happen next. We want to keep this conversation going. As usual, make sure to like, subscribe, and smash on that bell for all notifications. And one last thing, make sure to scan this QR code and become a daily baked-in newsletter subscriber, giving you all the latest information on the business and reform side of the cannabis space. And now's the time to subscribe because there's so much going on a daily basis. That's it, everybody. Enjoy the rest of your weekend, and I'll see you next week. Big week coming up here on the Trade to Black podcast. I'm your host, Shad Dales, and thanks again for watching.